Franchising. You hear that word all the time, right? But what does it really mean? Most of us think fast food, but that's just scratching the surface. Today, we're going to peel back the layers on this massive business model to figure out how it works and, why it's pretty much everywhere. Okay, first things first, let's talk scale. Because this isn't some niche market. Check this out. In Australia alone, franchising pumps a staggering $154 billion into the economy every single year. That's powered by nearly 500,000 people working in almost 83,000 different spots. I mean, it's a true economic powerhouse.
So when I say franchise, what pops into your head? Burgers, fries? Yeah, me too. But the reality is way, way broader. We're talking frozen yogurt shops, sure, but get this, even guinea pig pet stores. And it's not just retail. We're talking high-end, specialized services like IVF clinics and mortgage brokers. It just goes to show, this model can work for almost anything.
Okay, so what is this thing at its core? Well, it's actually a pretty simple and kind of elegant partnership. You've got two main players. First, the franchisor. They're the ones who created the brand, the recipe, the whole playbook. Then you have the franchisee. That's the person who buys the right to use that brand and playbook, running their own local spot, and in return, paying ongoing fees back to, the mothership.
All right, so here's the game plan for today. We've kind of covered the what. Next up, we'll dive into why it's so popular. Then we'll get practical and look at how you can get involved, the classic path of starting from scratch, the option of buying an existing one, and finally, we'll get into some more advanced strategies you might not even know exist.
So let's get into the why. Why has franchising become this go-to strategy for so many huge brands, even when the economy gets shaky? Well, it really boils down to a super simple two-ingredient recipe for growth.
I mean, think about it. If you want to grow a business, you're always up against two massive challenges, right? First, you need money. A lot of money to open new spots. Second, you need good people, and not just warm bodies, but motivated, dedicated managers who are going to run that new location like it's their own baby. Well, franchising is genius because it solves both problems in one shot. The franchisee brings the cash, and because they're an owner, they bring that skin in the game motivation. Problem solved.
Okay, so it's a killer model for brands that want to expand. We get that. But what if you're on the other side? What if you're the one who wants to get in on the action? How do you actually do it? Well, it turns out there are a few different ways in.
Let's start with the one everyone thinks of first. We'll call it the classic path. This is all about starting a brand new franchise, completely from scratch.
Now, the appeal here is pretty obvious, right? It's a totally blank slate. It's all new, it's all yours. You get to build your team, your culture, exactly how you want it from day one. But, and this is a big but, that freedom comes with some serious risks. Your location? It's a total gamble. It could be a gold mine or it could be a complete ghost town. And that startup phase, man, it just bleeds cash. You've got to be prepared to hang on for dear life until the money starts coming in.
Okay, but what if starting from zero sounds a little terrifying? Well, that brings us to the next option, buying a franchise that's already open for business. This is the acquisition path.
And this is where you see the fundamental trade-off. Starting new, you get all the control, but you also take on all the risk. Buying an existing place, it completely flips that script. The risk is way lower because you've got proven sales figures, a real track record. You know what you're walking into. But the catch is you inherit everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
And trust me, that history can come with some serious baggage. For starters, the main company, the franchisor, might have something called a right of first refusal, meaning they can swoop in and buy the place right out from under you. You could also get slammed with a massive transfer fee. We're talking like 5 to 15% of the purchase price. And maybe the worst part? You might inherit all sorts of hidden nightmares. Unhappy vendors, equipment that's about to die, a terrible reputation, and you won't find out until after you've signed on the dotted line.
All right, so those are the two main ways in. But the world of franchising goes deeper than that. Let's get into some of the more advanced strategies, the kind of stuff you'd look at if you've got more experience or maybe just different goals. First up, there's the master franchisee. I love this analogy from our source material. Think of this person as the utility infielder of franchising. Basically, it's usually a really successful franchisee who steps up to take on a bigger role. They help the main company find, train, and support other new franchisees in a whole territory. It's a huge step up.
Okay, next up is what sounds like the absolute dream, right? The absentee investor. This is someone who owns a franchise but doesn't have to deal with the day-to-day grind. Now, let me be crystal clear about this. This is the unicorn of the franchise world. It is incredibly rare and unbelievably difficult to make work. The business itself has to be just right for this to even be a possibility.
And here's a perfect story that shows why it's so hard. This is a great quote from a senior exec at a muffler franchise. He said, flat out, that his shops couldn't be run by employee managers. Why? Because, as he put it, too much of the inventory would leave at the end of the workday. It's a funny way of saying stuff gets stolen. It really shows that you need a real owner on site, someone with skin in the game, to stop that from happening. And finally, we've got the conversion franchise. Now, this is a really interesting one. It's for people who already own their own independent business. They can choose to basically convert their business and join up with a big national brand. The classic example is Century 21, which brought tons of independent real estate agents under its huge umbrella. You get all the brand power and marketing muscle of a giant while still keeping some of your original identity.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? I think it's that franchising isn't just one thing. It's not a one-size-fits-all deal. It's really a whole spectrum of opportunities. It's a flexible arena where you can find a path that fits your budget, your goals, and exactly how hands-on you want to be. And all of that really leads us to the final and probably most important question. It's not just what is franchising, but what could it be for you? Do you want to build something from the ground up? Or maybe turn around an existing business? Or leverage the power of a huge brand? Which one of those paths really fits your ambition? That's the real question. Thanks for joining me.